Hey everyone, it is Rachel from the #History podcast, and as you may recall, if you listened to last week's episode, the part 1 of our Watergate coverage, you may recall that I said, hey, sorry everyone, our audio was a little weird in this episode, but don't worry, it'll be great next week. I lied. The same audio problems we had last week persisted into this week's episode. So please do forgive us. It's really not that bad. Please still tune into the episode. There's just a few moments where my audio got kind of wonky. And so I have gone in and re-recorded myself saying those words that get a little jumbled. At those moments, it might feel a little jarring to hear a very fresh, clean audio voice come in and correct myself. But please, like I said, continue to listen to the episode. It's a really great episode. I really love this one. I'm so glad we finally got to talk about Watergate. And I can promise you that next week's episode, the audio has officially been fixed. I can promise you that because I've already listened to it. Thanks. This is #History episode 168. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And this week we are talking about Watergate again. Again. I really had zero intention of turning this into a two-parter episode. If you follow us over on Instagram, I gave you all a sneak peek of the episode lineup for the season. And I asked you all, hey, if I end up having to make a particular episode into two parts, which of these other episodes would you be cool with me pushing to next season? And you all were super helpful with making that decision, and the decision to split up the Watergate episode and give it the full attention and detail that it deserves. The reason I bring that up, not only because thank you all for giving me the permission to do so, but also because I wanted to give a quick little plug to all of you to make sure that you're following us over on social media. If you're not already doing that, that's where we make announcements. We post pictures from the episodes. We post our cocktail recipes. We ask for your advice about which episodes we should or should not record.
I love what everybody voted off the plank. And
so quickly too. So quickly. I'll since I did already give that sneak peek on social media, I'll just go ahead and leak it here too. It was between what was it? It was Ronald Reagan's the attempted assassination,
and then the 2000, right?
Yes, the 2000 election recount. Yep, and everyone's like, we don't give a fuck about the election recount. I take that back. It actually was almost 50-50 there for a while. And then for whatever reason, towards the end, people want to talk more about Reagan's almost assassination than Bush becoming president. And hey, fair. But now back to this week's episode. Last week, we left off with the White House Plumbers that Nixon had recruited to serve as his secret task force to stop any potential leaks, not actual plumbing leaks, but leaks like the 7,000 pages of Pentagon Papers that exposed just how much the U.S. government had been lying to the American people about our involvement in the Vietnam War. Where we left off with last week's episode was Nixon getting increasingly paranoid about being exposed, about perhaps not getting reelected to the presidency, and about damaging his reputation. And so he became hellbent and willing to go to extreme lengths to ensure it did not happen. In this week's episode, we are officially going to be discussing Watergate, the details of the actual operation to wiretap the Democratic National Committee headquarters, the investigative journalism that exposed this all, cover up, the federal investigations, the Supreme Court's involvement, and then, of course, talks of impeachment and Nixon's official resignation. The only president in American history to ever resign, because you can do that.
You can.
You can. You can, please. please, you can. But before we officially dive into the scandal of it all, let's dive into this cocktail that is making my nose run from a foot away.
Yeah, you're about to say mouthwater, but I mean, that's too positive a connotation for what's happening.
I'm Rachel. And I'm Leah. And this is #History, the podcast for both history nerds and history haters alike, where we dive into history's greatest stories of controversy, conspiracy, and corruption.
So first and foremost, we have to once again thank Courtney for sponsoring this week's cocktail.
Thank you, Courtney. And that's it, because
And that's it.
her note was as simple as that.
Yep.
Actually, there was no note.
Yeah.
But thank you, Courtney.
Thank you. I don't know if I said this in the last episode. I can't remember. It's been a couple weeks since we recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
But frickin' Safeway didn't include a Serrano pepper in my online order. So
yes,
my drink for part one of this two-part, series, if you will, was lacking any spice, which sucked.
And is the whole point of this drink.
Yeah.
Is for it to be spicy.
Yeah. And if I recall, you also had some feelings about like ways you could improve upon the cocktail.
Yes.
So since this is a part 2 for the Watergate Scandal, we are going to retry, stick with us people, the Wicked Whistleblower cocktail with some just tweaks.
By tweaks, yours is like having the ingredients.
Having all the ingredients.
That your shopper was supposed to bring you, yeah. My recollection from how I felt about it last time, I remember really liking it, but feeling like the spice wasn't coming through much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really brought down the amount of sweet stuff I put in. I brought down the pineapple juice, I brought down the simple syrup, and then I told Leah that I actually made my drink like hours ago and put it without ice and put it in the fridge so that like the peppers could marinate. And so I think I'm definitely going to achieve spice, perhaps too much spice.
Yes, and I second this because I, after making my beverage, I licked the spoon like I used a spoon to stir it all up, and then my mouth was on fire. And my lips are burning and bordering on numb.
Yeah, she looks like she got filler in her lips.
So I have a feeling it's going to be spicy to the point of like actually possibly undrinkable, but I'm going to give it a try.
Yeah, we have both already discussed that we have Tums at the ready.
Tums at the ready. Also some ice cubes to suck on, yeah.
That, and yeah, we both have ice and have filled our water bottles to the brim.
Yes. I thought about bringing in a glass of milk, but that felt too weird.
Going too hard.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah. Cheers.
Okay. It's spicy, but not too spicy. Is it good?
I'm in love.
Oh.
Yeah. It's spicy, but not too spicy.
It's definitely going to give me more heartburn, but
yeah, it's a bad week for you to drink this drink since you're already experiencing some heartburn.
But it's not like my mouth isn't on fire or anything yet.
I'm feeling spice in my mouth and my throat and a little bit on my lips. Yeah. But it's not, even though I said I'm feeling spice every single place that you could feel it, it's not overbearing. It's good. I like it. I like it more than the last time we had it. I remember last time feeling like I was mostly just tasting the pineapple juice. I actually don't taste the pineapple juice at all this time.
And I wonder if that's why yours is a different color because you put less in.
I definitely put less in. How much did you put in?
The 3 ounces.
Okay, and that's what I did last time. Yeah. You all will see the recipe when we post it on Instagram. It says like 2 to 3 ounces. I remember last time I did like a heavy 3 ounces. And this time I kept it like right under 2 ounces because I wanted to be able to taste the spice. And it is so good. But I love it.
Yeah. I still don't know if I'm going to be able to finish it though because the heartburn.
Yeah. Be careful. A good night's sleep is much more important than finishing a cocktail.
Yeah. You're going to finish yours.
I will be done with mine by the time we finish the cocktail segment.
Wonderful. Well, you have about 2 seconds because we need to do ratings. So
I want to hear yours first.
Okay. On a normal day when I'm not worried about heartburn, I would give it a 7.5. Tequila has kind of slowly become not my favorite.
I think it's an age thing. I'm sorry to tell you that. I've been hearing that from other people our age. I haven't hit it yet.
Yeah, I still like a good margarita or whatever, but I don't like it as much as other liquors.
I've been hearing that a lot from people around our age that if it's not a margarita, I don't want the tequila in anything else.
Yeah.
I think I'm an 8.5. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Seriously, I love this drink so much.
Yeah, sorry I'm repeating, but I just felt like we were talking at the end of the last episode and we were like, why don't we just redo it?
Yep, because there were adjustments that we wanted to make, and again, by adjustments, it was for you actually having the most important ingredient.
Right.
And I hope that my rating did go up. I feel like it did because I really am enjoying this a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's important to know that before Watergate, Nixon's White House Plumbers, many of which were also members of his special committee for the re-election of the president, otherwise known as CRP, or as I have seen online, purposefully pronounced as creep.
Mm-hmm.
They had several other proposed operations. These included Operation Diamond, a kidnapping, drugging, and detaining effort for all potential protesters at the 1972 Republican National Convention.
All?
Hmm.
Were there
Yes,
what,
all.
five? Only five of them? Or what are we talking about here?
As I read a couple more of these, the look on your face, I have something that I want to say. The look on your face reminded me.
Okay.
There was another operation. It was called Operation Sapphire. This was an operation that involved a boat full of sex workers. Okay, yep. Your face is reminding me of exactly what I wanted to say. This boat full of sex workers meant to entrap Democrats at the Democratic National Convention. There was Operation Turquoise, which proposed that the air conditioning be messed with at a Democratic convention. Okay. Or even Operation Emerald, which involved an aircraft that would follow around the Democratic presidential nominee. So I perceive these things as like, yeah, pretty creepy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But your face reminded me. Have you seen the show? It's on Hulu. I know you don't have Hulu,
We have
right?
Disney, which is, yeah.
Okay. It came out like a couple years ago. And it's called The White House Plumbers.
No.
And the main characters are played by Woody Harrelson and Justin
Thoreau?
Theroux. Yes. And if just telling you alone that like those are the main characters kind of tells you what personalities the leads of these operations exhibit, right? Like over the top,
Uh-huh.
obnoxious, think they're cooler and smarter and more strategic than they are. So the look on your face of like amusement that they had these ideas of like filling a boat with sex workers is the way that these men really genuinely thought. And it is creepy and weird and uncomfortable, but
Like,
also
I just
funny
remember like
AF.
thinking of other like espionage type episodes we've gone over, like talking about like
Mm.
Operation Mincemeat or whatever, and we
Hmm.
were talking about like how cool and how fun it would be to think up all these operations and all this stuff. These people are like they're like taking that and then they're making it not cool. But they think they're cool.
Yeah, these guys are morons. These guys are the morons. And that is exactly what it is. Like you have to watch that show. I
Okay.
actually talk about it later in the episode. If you want to get like a good flavor of who these guys were, if you even need that additional flavor after me telling you about these types of
Yeah.
operations that they were proposing, that is very much who they were. Were like the uncool people that thought they were cool. Instead, the CRP, or as I will be calling them going forward, creep, decided to just wiretap the DNC, the Democratic National Convention. So I think everyone knows what the Democratic National Convention or the Republican National Convention is, but essentially, this is the huge event that is held every 4 years in which the party officially nominates who will become the presidential candidate and vice presidential candidate for each party in that year's general election. So, like, it's a big deal,
Yeah.
right? And it would be very, very weird and very, very illegal for someone, particularly someone from the opposite side, to sneak into the building where that convention is set to be held and bug it in
Well,
advance.
also just like funny because like now everything is live streamed. It's
Oh,
so
you're
like
so
what are you
right too.
why are you bugging?
And also how many like influencers are in the room that have their little like
Yeah.
lapel mics and
Yeah.
stuff, right? You're so right. But I can't wait till we get to the humorous stuff in here, as if, the operations we already talked about weren't humorous enough. Some of these first attempts to get into Watergate are so funny and embarrassing. Um, but that bugging the convention center, that is precisely what Nixon's plumbers did. In May of 1972, the team was assembled and began their planning for breaking into the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C., the location where the DNC was set to be held. This team included James McCord, Bernard Barker, Virgilio Gonzalez, Eugenio Martinez, and Frank Sturgis. Also involved in the planning, though not involved in the actual break-in, were Howard Hunt and Gordon Liddy. Those are Hunt and Liddy are Woody Harrelson and Justin Theroux. It's important to note that all of these men had some sort of connection to the CIA or FBI or intelligence operations. And the majority of them were Cuban Americans, men who had previously worked with the CIA officers on a task force to oust Fidel Castro. Many of them were Bay of Pigs veterans and saw their plumbing efforts as a covert mission to stop communism. The break-in that we are all familiar with is the one that occurred on June 17th. But before that successful attempt, there were many unsuccessful attempts to break into Watergate, and some of them are pretty comical. One includes two of the guys breaking into the banquet room at Watergate, hiding in a closet there to avoid running into the night guard, and then being unable to pick the lock of the closet door from the inside. And so they were forced to stay overnight in the closet. There are other attempts that failed when DNC volunteers were working later than anticipated or when the wiretapping devices planted didn't actually work. But eventually, on June 17th, the creep team was successful. Or is that fair to say? You'll see why I place that hypothetical question in a minute.
Okay.
Ahead of the operation, they placed tape across the latches of the doors so that when closed, the door wouldn't lock. And this tape was placed horizontally, so it's visible from either side of the door. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so because, they're morons, that night when the security guard was doing his rounds, he could see the tape and removed it. After the security guard left his shift to go eat, and the creep team returned to Watergate, they were shocked to see that their totally inconspicuous and absolutely subtle tape was removed from the doors.
I also love that the security guard saw that doors were taped, removed the tape, and then went on a lunch break.
And then went and got a sandwich. He's like, interesting. Everyone here, I'm sorry, is incompetent.
Oh my God. Sounds like, never mind.
I know. You know what? Actually, but I take solace in that. I do.
Yeah.
Because when I look at present day and I say, my God, everyone's incompetent, does it make me feel a little better to know we've always been incompetent? In a weird way, sort of.
Yeah.
In a weird way, sort of.
Yep. We made it through.
Nixon did not, but some other people did,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they come back. They're shocked to see that the tape's been removed from the doors. So they attempted for several minutes to repick the locks, but without success. They eventually decided to just take the door off at the hinges. The creep team entered the room and installed a listening device that looked like a smoke detector. During all of this, the security guard who had, left to go get that sandwich returned, and it being obvious that someone had broken into the building, he called the cops who quickly discovered the intruders. All 5 of the men there conducting the wiretapping operation were immediately arrested. Keep in mind, this is at 2:30 a.m. And then Hunt and Liddy, who were heading the operation but weren't physically there that night, were quickly found to be connected to the case and were also swiftly arrested. In the immediate aftermath, the White House was doing everything it could to cover up Creep's involvement in Watergate. Attorney General John Mitchell was quoted as saying that the break-in was not done, quote, on either our behalf or with our consent. There is no place in our campaign for this type of activity, and we will not permit it or condone it, unquote. But we know this isn't true because Mitchell, White House counsel John Dean, White House counsel John Ehrlichman, and White House Chief of Staff John Haldeman were all specifically...
So many Johns.
So many, they're all, literally everyone's name is John. If it's not John, it's Richard. They were all specifically tasked with getting the CIA to stop the FBI from thoroughly investigating the case. This didn't go over well with the FBI director, who actually personally called Nixon in July of that year to advise Nixon that his staff was attempting to persuade the CIA to keep the FBI from doing their job. White House staff then shifted their focus and instead concentrated their efforts on getting the burglars to keep their mouths shut by offering to give them hundreds of thousands of dollars in exchange for guilty pleas and a promise of silence.
That won't be traced back to them.
No, not at all. Especially during this time period when everyone's using checkbooks. Literally checkbooks with a return address on them.
Oh my God.
That was foreshadowing. That's coming up. The Washington Post was having a field day, putting out article after article about Watergate, making it clear that Watergate had been an attempt to get Nixon reelected. But they were not initially able to make direct ties back to the White House. And so in November of that year, Nixon did indeed win re-election in an absolute landslide, one of the most sweeping presidential victories in U.S. history. And because I nerd out about this type of stuff, I was talking to my husband Alex about this because, again, like this is the pillow talk we have. I'm like, do you want to hear about Nixon's reelection campaign? And he's like, okay, yeah, sure. While we were talking about this literally last night, he brought up something that I think is a good point. I'm sure he's not alone in this. He didn't realize that Watergate actually happened before Nixon's
Yeah,
reelection.
I didn't really know that either.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize that. And it just goes to show that I think the American people for a long time were unwilling to believe that Nixon maybe had direct involvement in this. At this point, it had not yet been proven. There was obviously speculation.
Yeah.
And certainly, I think if you're using critical thinking when you're looking at these things, it would have been obvious. But isn't that just so interesting that we think that Watergate's what took him down, and it is what took him down, but still not initially. He still won one of the greatest re-elections, not only re-elections, elections in presidential history
Yeah.
after Watergate had already happened. Nixon was insistent upon his innocence, saying in a speech later that year what is probably the most infamous quote attributed to Nixon, quote, "Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I got," unquote.
Mm-hmm.
But this high wouldn't last for long. Just 2 months after Nixon was reelected, the Watergate trial began before John J. Sirica, the chief judge of the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. All defendants were found guilty. This continued lying didn't sit well with McCord, who ended up writing the judge a letter a couple of months later with some pretty major confessions. I have a picture of that letter here that I'm hoping you can read a bit of, Leah. When you pull it up, if you could just read off bullet points 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, let me just spit out the ice cube I'm sucking on.
No rush, no rush.
Oh Jesus. Okay.
So again, this is a letter. This is someone, one of the burglars who was told to lie,
and
keep his mouth shut, and so he did.
This.
Well, but initially he did,
Yes.
was found guilty, and then was like, fuck this, and wrote a letter to the judge.
Okay. 1. There was political pressure applied to the defendants to plead guilty and remain silent. 2. Perjury occurred during the trial in matters highly material to the very structure, orientation, and impact of the government's case, and to the motivation and intent of the defendants. 3. Others involved in the Watergate operation were not identified during the trial when they could have been by those testifying.
Yeah.
I feel like he's still trying to be somewhat vague.
Definitely. When I was doing my research, it's so funny you say that, because when I was doing my research, so many things I read were like, the McCord letter to the judge was like the final nail in the coffin. It's what it blew everything up. It was the smoking gun. And then I read this, I'm like, did it?
Yeah.
Like, huh? Like, it totally is still vague, and he's definitely still burying the lead here.
Yeah.
At the same time, he is admitting that like this thing maybe goes all the way up to the top.
Yeah.
And that letter, albeit somewhat vague, it was just what the legal system, the political system, and journalists and the public needed in order to confirm that the Watergate ties went all the way to the top. Reporters Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein of the Washington Post in particular were instrumental in revealing these ties. They reported on a $25,000 check that had been made out of Nixon's re-election campaign, but was deposited into the bank account of one of the Watergate burglars. They exposed that the burglars were being paid hush money to not say anything about their involvement, and they received frequent tips from an insider dubbed Deep Throat.
Oh boy.
Yeah. No, and the sexual connotation there is intentional.
Okay.
Deep Throat provided them with intel about the cover-up going on at the White House. This anonymous source, named Deep Throat, would end up being revealed roughly 30 years later as Mark Felt, the Deputy Associate Director of the FBI.
Oh.
This is who was the anonymous source to the Washington Post. Isn't that insane? I mean, gosh, we could be here for another 3 hours if I talked about him, but the reason why he was blowing this all up is because he was pretty jaded. He was supposed to replace Herbert Hoover, and Nixon wanted his own guy as the director, and so Mark Felt
like he was being passed over. Yeah.
Yep. And so he became an informant. Ultimately, what the Washington Post was able to reveal was that the Watergate scandal was but a small part of a larger scale effort to use wiretapping, spying, and other deceptive, borderline or just straight up illegal methods in order to secure Nixon's reelection. This culminated in a Senate investigation, which had been approved by a 77-0 vote in the Senate,
Whoa.
marking the last time our government unanimously agreed on anything. That's a joke. Sort of.
Is it? Like we should do
Sort of. Though the investigation had been approved by the Senate in February of 1973, it would not begin until May of that year. And in that time, several members of the White House staff resigned or were fired, including Haldeman, Ehrlichman, and Dean. When the hearings began on May 17th, 1973, they were televised for the full 51 days that they took place. There are estimates that 85% of Americans tuned into at least some of the more than 300 hours of hearings. The hearings were also played on radio stations like NPR. I mean, I know for a fact that I would have been locked in.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. I would be like, what are you doing? Oh wait, you're you're listening to the Nixon trial.
Yeah, of course. The same thing you were doing yesterday and the day before that. I would take medical leave from work for all 51 days. I would be totally zoomed in, just as I was for Trump's second impeachment hearings and the Karen Reed trial.
Oh, yeah.
The primary question for these hearings, and one that would later become an infamous line, was posed by Republican Senator Howard Baker, in which he asked, quote, "What did the president know and when did he know it?" Unquote. Through witness testimony, namely that of former White House counsel John Dean, the answer to those questions was revealed. Dean testified that he had met with the president and told him about the activities of the creep team and that White House staff was paying them hush money. It is not clear to what extent Nixon may have approved of these activities, but we know at the bare minimum that he was aware of them. It was also revealed during the Senate hearings that Nixon had a taping system secretly set up in various places throughout the White House, including the Oval Office. This was news to the committee, who quickly demanded that the tapes be turned over as evidence. And let me be clear in saying that the very fact that he had these taping devices secretly placed throughout the White House was not unique to him. We know, I think you already know probably what I'm going to say. We know that several other presidents like Roosevelt, Eisenhower, Truman, Kennedy, and Lyndon B. Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you all can't see Leah is blushing and shaking her head.
I just think about what did he say? The inseam of his pants.
We're gonna get there. All these presidents had secret taping devices placed throughout the White House, which is why we, as Leah is again blushing and shaking her head, have all been on the unfortunate receiving end of that awful recorded phone call in which Johnson was telling his tailor to sew extra space in the crotch of his pants around his bunghole.
His bunghole. That was the term I was looking for. Yes.
To make space for jumbo. That may have been the other term you were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But what did set Nixon apart in this regard was that when the tapes were ordered to be turned over, Nixon did two things. One, he ordered for the presidential taping system at the White House to stop completely. And two, he refused to turn over the existing tapes, stating executive privilege. Now, executive privilege is a real thing. The president does need to be able to maintain some secrets, particularly when it comes to matters of national security and foreign affairs.
And Area 51. I'm kidding.
Yeah, Area 51, UFOs, green men, right. Those sorts of things, yeah. Roswell.
Because that's high priority.
I know, like literally, if you told me we had aliens, I'm at such a numb place.
Right? I'd be like, so how does that affect me today?
And question mark? Genuinely. But executive privilege is not absolute. It cannot be used to hide wrongdoing. Cough, cough, current administration. Nixon initially proposed that he turn over transcripts of the tapes instead of the actual tapes, but knowing that the transcripts could be easily manipulated, Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox refused this. In response, Nixon fired Archie Cox. And that doesn't look bad at all, right? That he fired the special prosecutor that demanded these tapes.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Totally fine.
Right. It was so not fine that this event actually became known as the Saturday Night Massacre, as this firing had occurred on a Saturday evening. And it was this event that really marked the official turning point of the Watergate scandal. People that had, up to this point, refused to believe Nixon had played an active role in the scandal were now shaken by what his firing of the special prosecutor who refused to behave exactly as he had demanded could mean.
People seemed more scrutable than people nowadays.
People seems like they read more. People seemed like they had values and they stuck to them. Interesting.
Strange.
Despite all these efforts, the case of the White House tapes went all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States, where the judges ultimately voted unanimously that the tapes must be turned over to the new special prosecutor and the Senate committee. And in July of 1974, a full year after the tapes were initially requested, Nixon finally turned them over. But that year-long gap had given him and his team time to delete some evidence, allegedly.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the tapes were turned over, a couple of things were found, or not found in at least one case. For one tape recording, the committee found an 18.5-minute gap where all they could hear was just fuzz.
Mm-hmm.
Nixon's secretary said it was an innocent mistake she had made when reviewing the tapes. She said she had accidentally pressed the wrong button and it caused the tape to be recorded over at that exact moment. We will never know exactly what took place during that 18.5 minutes. Many people have tried in the decades that have followed to recover that material, but there is high suspicion that the conversation was indeed about Watergate. We know for a fact that this gap occurred during a conversation between Nixon and his chief of staff, Haldeman. It took place just 3 days after Watergate. When Haldeman was required to produce his notes from that meeting, we see that the topic of the arrests at the Watergate Hotel did come up. Then there was a piece of audio recorded on a separate date that became known as the smoking gun tape. In this recorded conversation, Haldeman can be heard talking to Nixon about the Watergate cover-up. This conversation proved that Nixon was fully aware of the Watergate burglaries and also that he approved of a plan to get the CIA to stop the FBI from investigating. After this tape was released, Nixon made a statement that he had never meant to mislead the public by saying he was entirely unaware of the Watergate cover-up. He admitted, without really admitting, that he had made some bad judgment calls and that his failure to admit to them in the past was merely a lapse of memory. This was the final nail in the coffin for Nixon. Following the release of the tapes and Nixon's public statement, the 11 Republicans on the Judiciary Committee who had previously voted against impeaching Nixon now said they were ready and willing to change their vote. Speaking with his advisors, it became clear that there were enough votes in the Senate to formally impeach and likely convict Nixon. And so, with impeachment looming, Nixon announced his resignation just a few days later on August 8th, 1974, making him the only president in American history to resign from the role.
Mm-hmm.
He announced his resignation in a formal televised speech. His speech is so long. So I've pulled just bits and pieces of it here that I'm hoping you can read, Leah. And again, when you look at this, I recognize that this is still so long, what I'm about to have you read.
Okay.
But trust that I have sliced and diced the hell out of this thing. What you're about to read is still only like 20% the full speech.
Wonderful.
My apologies in advance, and this is now where I will be finishing my cocktail. So you will be talking for the next 15 minutes.
Wonderful. I have water on standby. Okay. Good evening. This is the 37th time I've spoken to you from this office where so many decisions have been made that shaped the history of this nation. Each time I have done so to discuss with you some matter that I believe affected the national interest. In all the decisions I have made in my public life, I've always tried to do what was best for the nation. Throughout the long and difficult period of Watergate, I have felt it was my duty to persevere, to make every possible effort to complete the term of office to which you elected me. In the past few days, however, it has become evident to me that I no longer have a strong enough political base in the Congress to justify continuing that effort. As long as there was such a base, I felt strongly that it was necessary to see the constitutional process through to its conclusion, that to do otherwise would be unfaithful to the spirit of that deliberately difficult process and a dangerously destabilizing precedent for the future. But with the disappearance of that base, I now believe that the constitutional purpose has been served, and there is no longer a need for this process to be prolonged.
So again, like not admitting fault or not saying, I recognize what I've done was wrong. It's like, I've recognized that I've lost the support that I need to keep me in office. So now I got to go.
Yeah. I would have preferred to carry through to the finish whatever the personal agony it would have involved, and my family unanimously urged me to do so. But the interest of the nation must always come before any personal considerations. I have never been a quitter. To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body. But as president, I must put the interest of America first. Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office. Shared ideals that lie at the heart of our strength and unity as a great and as a free people.
Mm-hmm.
I regret deeply any injuries that may have been done in the course of the events that led to this decision. I would say only that if some of my judgments were wrong and some were wrong, they were made in what I believed at the time to be the best interest of the nation.
Initial thoughts on that speech?
Like you said, he's not actually admitting fault.
Yeah.
It feels very much just like, well, you guys don't want me, so off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's kind of what it feels like to me.
And very much like martyr.
Oh yeah.
Selfless martyr, right?
Like yeah, like I'm doing this against everything I want to do. This isn't because I want to quit. It's because it's for the the good of the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, like, hate to break it to you, that's the role of the president. We actually don't care about you personally. We care about what you do for the nation.
Yeah.
And just as he said, the following day, Nixon left, and Vice President Gerald Ford was sworn in to take his place as president of the United States. There's an infamous picture of Nixon taken as he was boarding Air Force One to be taken home to California. I have it here for us to look at. I'm sure you've only seen it 100 times before. You already know it was going to be that picture.
I actually didn't know that this was when he was leaving.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And it's very tone deaf.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a good word for it. That's a good word.
I'm glad he's so happy to be leaving.
Yeah, it's tone deaf for sure. He looks very happy, and he was doing his what looked like peace signs, but for him it was like V for victory was kind of his thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think tone deaf was probably the best word you could use to describe that.
And if he is doing V for victory, what is he victorious
in
this moment?
Upside down victory.
Yeah.
On September 8th, 1974, almost exactly a month after Nixon resigned from office, President Ford issued a full unconditional pardon for Nixon, meaning that he could never be held accountable for any wrongdoing that he did while president. This pardon was extremely unpopular and had serious ramifications for Ford. Historians have argued that this pardon is the primary reason Ford did not win re-election. Following the pardon, his approval rating dropped from 71% to 50%.
Yeah, like regardless of whether you agree with him politically or not, like it's kind of hard to stay behind someone who would do that.
Totally. And pardons often go that way, right? Like if a president is making a pardon, there's a lot of times that there's a personal, what's the word I want? Like pardons are often unpopular, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like it's not unique that president made a pardon that was unpopular, but particularly in this case, it meant that we will never know the full extent of Nixon's involvement in Watergate because he would, in his lifetime and onward, never be held accountable.
Yeah.
The impeachment proceedings for Nixon were obviously dropped following his resignation, but there were still potential federal criminal charges that could have been brought against him had Ford not pardoned him for any crimes he had, quote, committed or may not have committed, unquote. Although Nixon could not be tried for any charges connected with Watergate, several other people could and were. On February 1st, 1975, Mitchell, Haldeman, and Ehrlichman were all found guilty of criminal conspiracy. In total, 69 government officials would be charged with crimes related to the Watergate scandal, with 48 of them officially convicted. The Watergate scandal has a far-reaching legacy. We talked about in our part 1 episode how Watergate is the originator of adding the suffix gate onto the end of any scandal. There's Pizzagate, Elevator Gate. I'm at a loss for other ones. Anything else?
There's like a lot of reality TV ones.
Yeah. I mean, up until our current presidential administration, Watergate was considered the largest scandal in presidential history. Nixon's reputation was forever tainted by it, as was Ford's. The damage Nixon did on the Republican Party was significant as well. Following the scandal, Democrats gained 5 seats in the Senate and 49 in the House of Representatives. As we know, Ford did not win re-election and was actually beaten by an incoming Democrat, Jimmy Carter. One of the legacies of Watergate that I did not realize until researching this back when we did that collaboration episode with Civics and Coffee is something that directly impacts me on an annual basis. Because of Watergate, there was a huge wave of reform through the legal profession. So now, in order to be accredited by the American Bar Association, law schools are required now to teach courses on ethics. And all attorneys and paralegals, myself included, in order to maintain our licenses or certificates, we have to complete a certain number of continuing education in ethics every single year. So thank you very much to Nixon for that one. But really, the legacy of Watergate goes so much deeper than the annoying hour of ethics training I have to complete every year. It made people distrust the government even more than they already did following the Vietnam War. It gave us very low expectations of our government officials and their ability to put the country before their own selfish and corrupt interests.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know where else to insert this information since it isn't related to Watergate at all, but is related to the overall distrust that the American people had in this particular administration. So forgive me if this feels like a large aside. But I think it's important to note too that Nixon's first vice president, Spiro Agnew, so before Gerald Ford became his VP, was surrounded in controversy and scandal and also ended up resigning, making him only the second VP to ever do so. He was being investigated by the Maryland U.S. Attorney on suspicion of tax fraud, bribery, extortion, and criminal conspiracy.
Mm.
These allegations had nothing to do with Watergate. He was never implicated in that scandal. But I don't think we can talk about Nixon and the Watergate scandal without mentioning another huge scandal that took place during his administration.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to have a positive outlook on it, we could certainly look at the Supreme Court's involvement and Congress's involvement and acknowledge what a powerful example of checks and balances working correctly this is. The other branches of government essentially proved that the President of the United States is not above the law and that he or she does not get special privileges just by nature of the position. I say this now with a tainted view because we are not seeing history repeat this correction in present time, and it is thoroughly disappointing.
Yeah.
Watergate also had a huge legacy on the media and their important role in society. The two journalists from the Washington Post, Woodward and Bernstein, would actually end up winning a Pulitzer Prize for their Watergate exposés. They would go on to write a best-selling book titled All the President's Men, and the US actually saw journalism as a major reach an all-time high following the scandal.
Mm-hmm.
Nixon struggled to rehabilitate his image following Watergate. Just a few years after the scandal in 1977, Nixon actually sat down with British journalist David Frost for $600,000 to be interviewed about Watergate and his legacy. From everything I've read, it sounds like Nixon was pretty taken aback by how aggressive and combative Frost was. He had expected him to throw him softball type questions.
Not for $600,000.
$600,000 to be interviewed. Excuse me? Well, you can ask me anything.
Uh-huh.
My most embarrassing things, bring them up.
Yeah.
Bring them up
honestly.
and blast them.
Yep. If you're paying me more than $500,000, you can ask me anything.
Anything. And then I will take that $600,000 and I will bury myself into the ground with it if I'm so embarrassed by the information that gets released, right?
Yep.
But yeah, so things get really tense in this interview. At one point, when he was feeling cornered by Frost, Nixon said out loud, quote, "When the president does it, that means that it is not illegal,"
Mm-hmm.
unquote. And of course, here's where I will insert that our current president in February of 2025 posted something very similar on Truth Social in which he said, quote, "He who saves his country does not violate any law," unquote. It's a quote that's largely attributed originally to Napoleon Bonaparte.
Uh-huh.
Another key moment from the Frost-Nixon interviews was when Nixon did finally and officially admit that he, quote, "let the American people down," unquote. This was the most direct confession one would ever get out of Nixon. It's very difficult to attempt to conclude this episode because there's still so much we have not talked about. I mean, we didn't even go on a deep throat tangent, and that does sound as bad as the tangent would have actually been.
Yeah.
So so if you are interested in learning more, I really recommend checking out the All the President's Men book that I mentioned earlier. And then, of course, the Hulu show that I've talked about a couple times now. It's called White House Plumbers with Woody Harrelson and Justin Theroux. And it is absolutely outrageous and good and stupid and funny all at the same time.
Would you say somewhat historically accurate or just
So far, yeah.
okay?
So far, yeah. And that is, from a layman's perspective, someone that I did significant research for these episodes, of course, but I am not a Nixon scholar or Watergate scholar.
Yeah.
So maybe someone listening to this is like, no, not at all. But from the research that I've done for these two episodes, everything has felt in line so far. So I'm gonna finally end this episode with this. Leah, you and I have been talking for, I don't know, the last 2 years. How old is Carter? About finally doing like a mommy's weekend, just you and me, no kids, spa treatment, wine, all the things. Okay, so we really do actually have to get that booked. But
yes,
I wanted to throw a contender out there for where we could stay.
Okay.
It's not exactly a spa resort, but if you could just follow the link here, please. Tell me what you see.
Oh, it's the Watergate Hotel. Are we staying in the Scandal Suite?
Yes! Did the link take you right to the Scandal Suite?
Yes, it did.
Okay, is this cool?
Oh, cute. Where is that? Oh, is it in the Watergate?
It's in the Watergate Hotel. So this is what is known as the Scandal Suite. It is in the Watergate Hotel. It's like the room that they've commemorated the Watergate scandal by decorating the original room of the 1972 break-in with items from the Watergate period. Nothing in there is like original.
Yeah.
But if you're looking online, you can do like a 360 of the whole room, and you can see that everything in there is from like the 1970s. The refrigerator that's in there and the glasses for cocktails are all like 1970s. There's an old school phone in there. And then there's a bunch of like newspaper clippings and stuff on the wall too.
Yeah.
So I did look up how much it costs to stay in this room, and I actually didn't find it outrageous. Okay. If you wanted to go like this weekend, we would be out nearly $600 a night.
Okay.
But
okay.
if we booked like a few months out, it's a little under $300 a night. It was like 280 something. And for this experience and in this economy where it cost me $100 just to put gas into my car, that actually didn't sound that outrageous.
Okay, but here's where I'm going to challenge this idea.
the plane
plane ride, especially now that Spirit Airlines has folded. Not that we would ever ride Spirit before.
I know.
But
So we're driving there, I guess, with our $100 to fill up my tiny SUV.
I have an electric vehicle, Mama.
Problem solved.
I mean, it'll add multiple days to our trip because we have to charge it, but
yeah, we will be driving for 3 weeks. But like, doesn't that actually look cool? Stay in that room, like
it does. Yeah.
If you're in the area, I think it's totally worth a splurge for like a night or two.
I would think so. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be so cool? Anyway, if we happen to be in the DC area, I think we have to do that just to say that we did.
Okay.
It looks so cool. I really did add it to my like official bucket list because it just is like such a cool experience. Okay, so any thoughts now that we have dove in as deep as we can into Watergate without making it an entire season?
Just I don't like the parallels. But also
big time.
Also, I wish there were more parallels in some ways, like in the repercussions of a scandal. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I did research while I was doing this episode, like who controlled the House and the Senate at this time, and it was Democrats. So it was the opposite of Nixon, who was a Republican president, which is not our case right now. So is it fair entirely to have parallels at the same time? Wrong is wrong.
Yeah.
But that goes again to like what you were saying, people having values and critical thinking and not being in a cult. I think it might be 20 to 30 years from now that we perceive things that are happening in this administration with the same lens as Watergate. I think Watergate has so much of its weight because of history, because of time, right?
Yep, 100%.
Because that's something I hear a lot is like, but is this bigger than Watergate? Things that are going on now. I'm like, yeah, actually it is. We just can't see that yet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Time hasn't passed enough yet.
Yep.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of #History.
We will share the pictures that we discussed on the episode to our Instagram. All sources used to put together the episode can be found on our website at #history-pod.com.
A special thank you to my husband Alex for editing the podcast and doing Nixon pillow talk with me. You're the best.
You are the best. Bless you.
Subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you use, share about us with your family and friends, and then give us a rate and review.
And be sure to check us out on Instagram. We're at #history_podcast.
And come join us over on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you can help support our books and booze supply. This is a place where you can support the podcast, and in exchange for your support, you'll receive an automatic 15% off all merchandise, and we mail you cards and stickers. Thanks!
Thanks.
Okay, bye.